This is a story about how a person who was once a person who thought that Christians were ignorant, self-righteous, judgmental, hypocritical, stupid. How a person who once thought all these things about Christianity and Christians in general became a born-again believer in Jesus Christ as their Savior, and that person is me. Most of my life as an adult, I've believed in the truth movement. I've followed the truth movement step by step for many years now, more than I'd like to admit. I followed the New Age movement. Although I believed in a universal force, I very rarely called it God. I called it universe. I called it my spiritual guides. I felt I had a deep connection to intuition. And I also felt protected. And I know I was now. But I just wasn't giving the right God credit for it. As a young child, I actually was raised Christian, but it didn't take very long before seeing so much hypocrisy and so many people who really, now I know, they didn't have much of a walk with him at all. They just sort of labeled themselves Christian and called it a day. They were probably not even familiar with most of his teachings. They just all called themselves Christian and went around being racist. And I was raised in the South, and I treasure much of my upbringing. However, I could not wait to get away from the racism and bigotry that I was surrounded with. Of course, there were good people too. There are good people everywhere. And in fact, most of my life, I believe everyone is good. I believe that most everyone is good. That some people are, maybe especially the people who rule this world, are greedy. They're after their own self-interests. But generally, people are good. I certainly didn't believe that Satan was real. That sounded like the most ridiculous thing I ever heard in my entire life. And furthermore, I really didn't like the idea of someone calling me a sinner. I mean, who are they to call me a sinner? Who are they to say that I am not perfect? Right. And I didn't believe in a judgmental God. I believed that God was all-knowing, all-loving, and that fear was the opposite of what any God would ever want to evoke in any person. And I still believe that God is a spirit of love beyond our comprehension. But I do now believe that the power that our true God has the keys to, you should fear it in a healthy way, like you would a good dad. So, my childhood was very unstable. I was surrounded by, and I'm not going to say all my life, my mother, God bless her, she quit drinking when I was a junior in high school, and suddenly my life kind of got normal. It was very strange. She's been through a lot. But as a child and as a tween, it was crazy. At different points, I wrestled a gun out of a grown man's hand. I was the adult in the situation. God has since told me that had great purpose, and that it created the kind of person that doesn't run away from things but runs towards them. I was the oldest, just barely, but I was the oldest of 3 girls, and emotionally I was very closed down and tried to be very stoic and strong for everyone. But there was a lot of fear under there that I took a long time to even know was there. Being from a broken home and not knowing where your dad is at times, and he too and I are great now. Things have come full circle all in my life. It's amazing. God has healed all of us in amazing ways. But suffice it to say, with no real healthy version of people who are walking with Christ, I wanted nothing to do with it. And that's exactly what I did. I judged them a lot. And I very quickly, as a young adult, got into New Age type teaching. There was a book a while back. It's ridiculous now, I think, but back then I thought it sounded pretty great. It's called Conversations with God. Neil Donald Walsh talks about this very God that I wanted to believe was true. A God that doesn't believe in right or wrong, only that we are God expressing itself. God wants more versions of existence, and so he created us. I don't believe this now, but this is what I believed before. He created us so that he could just experience life through us, and that he didn't judge it as right or wrong. It just is. It just is. And so I believe that. I can't say that I went out doing bad things and justified them, but I certainly didn't think that a lot of things that I think now were quote unquote wrong. I thought of abortion as just, you know, that soul knew that you weren't ready, and um, so, you'd see them at another time, and that was totally justified. I believe that religion was probably the worst thing that's ever happened on this earth. Here's what I used to say: more killing and murder has been done in the name of religion than any other single thing. The Bible is bunk. It is written by man. And as it pertains to, keeping in mind I never read the Bible, and as it pertains to more bad things happening under religion, that's actually true. You can still believe that and follow Jesus, and here's how. If you understand what Jesus actually taught, that we are meant to love the God above all and love each other as ourselves, then you understand that these people with KKK masks are not Christian. By definition, you cannot hate. You should not even judge. You should not even have unforgiveness in your heart. Now, that pretty much wipes out most every radical right-wing person that I know, because they're constantly judging and condemning, and this whole finger waggling thing was the thing I hated the most. I just didn't realize that Jesus wanted nothing to do with that. I do remember my college days changing my mind about how the world works. I learned about the agricultural industry. Tyson Foods had a I went to Fayetteville, Arkansas college, the Razorbacks, and tons of chicken houses up there, right? So you could smell these things for, like miles away. They were disgusting. I actually went up and talked to some of the people that worked in there, and all the people that worked in there refused to eat chicken. And that was so disgusting to me that I pretty much immediately became vegetarian, and I started studying what the FDA is up to and how they don't really protect us, and all this junk that's in our food that has no right being in there. So that sort of put me on this quest to question everything and not just believe everything that the government and or society tells me. I got very into health, awareness of organics, and I moved to Seattle, which was amazing for me. I learned a lot of things about spirituality. I learned about the fact that demons actually exist. I had a lot of friends who were psychics and who did body work on people, and they kept saying they were removing these entities, and some of them had the ability to see them, and it was pretty crazy. I was into all of that: tarot cards, astrology, numerology, and I loved it. I loved it all. Again, I feel like I've been very protected through this, because I now know that doing these things can get you into a lot of trouble. So not long after living in Seattle, I actually was able to have an opportunity to publish a magazine, and it was all about the importance of organics, how to look into alternative energy supply, alternative education like Waldorf and Montessori. We talked about the dangers in fluoride and all this kind of stuff. Not long after being there, I met a person named Michael Tsarian, and if you don't know him, he's rather well known in the truth movement and in some of the circles that discuss how Jesus is a myth. He's very into astrotheology, his own divination system with tarot and all this kind of stuff. But he's a genius. Mentally, he's basically a genius. He has a photographic memory. When he reads something once, he totally retains it, and I began to learn a lot about the truth movement. I learned about the Federal Reserve and how it is completely controlled, and the last two presidents who tried to do away with that system were Abraham Lincoln and JFK. The monetary system is completely corrupt. I learned how the media uses sacred symbols to appeal to our subconscious and to manipulate the way that we think and what we buy. I even learned some things pertaining to um, aliens and genetic manipulation around the time of Atlantis and Lemuria, and how that was even explained in parts of the Bible and many other ancient texts.
Children of the wasteland, hey, fallen angels, Babylon, it's coming.
And it just went on and on. I mean, as you can imagine, being around Michael, your mind is kind of blown. If you've seen the movie Zeitgeist, it has to do with basically trying to prove, or claiming to prove, that Jesus wasn't even alive, that he was just another myth. And so Horus was just the same as Jesus, was just the same as Isis, and it just goes on to explain all these different gods and goddesses and how they all have the same attributes. And I was like, hey, yeah, I knew Christianity was bunk. I'll believe it. And I didn't put much of my own research into it, and I just believed it hook, line, and sinker. Later, when seeing Zeitgeist, I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. And that just sealed the deal even more. So not long after that time of moving in with Michael there, the Twin Towers fell. And I knew in my spirit that something was very wrong with that. It didn't take much research to find out that, and if you don't already know about the government's involvement with 9/11, then look at this documentary Loose Change, or Architects and Engineers for the Truth Around 9/11, and you'll learn more than you need to know to at least begin questioning in a healthy direction. You know, our government isn't what we think it is. Our educational system is built to serve the agenda of the people who want to rule this world. Nobody was really talking too much about government involvement, but we did put together some information, and Michael did talks, and I was just, it was really disheartening for me, because everyone in the audience just became like so hopeless, so very hopeless. And now I understand why. When you just think of the world as being completely evil and you don't really have a solution, it doesn't feel good. So while there was a lot of truth in what we did, it really didn't point to the deepest truth of all. I had to learn that a lot later. So anyway, after leaving Seattle, I moved to LA, and I got much more into more superficial things, the sort of LA bubble, what I call bubblegum spirituality. There are people floating around doing their yoga in their tight little yoga pants and saying, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And, you know, not to make fun, that sounds terrible. That sounds terrible, and I'm sorry. I don't need to be judging. But I was right there with them. I mean, I didn't really relate with people that well, but I called myself not religious, spiritual as well. And I, was doing yoga myself and saying God is all loving and justifying all kinds of things. And I gotta say, being into all that, law of attraction, what I call now like the Oprah syndrome of the world, there was a deep emptiness in it. And it's funny because you always see, I mean, even now, Facebook, everybody says, love yourself and you go girl, and, all of this stuff around self-exaltation and we are God, and a part of your ego wants to believe that, yeah, that's true, that sounds great, and then another part, it just feels empty inside. I got very into the law of attraction stuff, and it was very like, I create my reality. I loved the idea that, I wasn't blaming my reality on someone else. I was taking responsibility for it and saying, hey, well, if I have a bad experience, and, get that thought out of your mind and create better thoughts so you can manifest more better things and better stuff and all that kind of just ridiculous garbage. So I was deep into that for many, many years. After being in LA a few years, I did wind up having a daughter who has saved my life, basically. So I was very heads down with her for a few years. I stayed home with her and became a mom and loved it. Found many good women friends through that experience. I found a lot of fulfillment. But let's get into the part that actually planted a seed that made things very different for me. Well, actually, the first seed that was planted was through my very own daughter. When my daughter was 4, you may have already seen this video. If you haven't, check it out. When she was 4 years old, about 5 years ago, she had a dream. In this dream, one night I was putting her to bed and she was absolutely terrified. And she had stayed the night with her dad's the night before. She told me that she had a horrible, horrible nightmare. She proceeded to explain to me that in her dream, she witnessed the rise of this beloved man who had created this machine. And everyone really thought this man was really nice and he was the leader of the world and everyone loved him and followed him. He had told everyone, if you go into this machine, you'll see the afterworld. And he promised that the afterworld was wonderful. And when they came out of this machine, they had a mark on their right wrist. And she proceeded to draw this mark, and she drew this man who actually, when in the drawing, he was a beast. He was a monster. And just as it says in Revelation, as the beast that rises with many horns, and it says one of the heads is dripping with blood. That's what she drew. And for any of you who haven't read Revelation, the symbol of the beast is essentially, it's the New World Order system. Now I know this. Yeah, I didn't even have a Bible, and I went out and found one, and my mind was blown. She explained to me that she had gone through this machine, and she kept saying, I didn't know. She didn't know that she would have this mark that would not come off, that she drew the next day, that it contained an alien head as a part of its design. Very frightening looking. And I essentially put it on a shelf. I mean, I definitely paid attention, and again, I thought the Bible was bunk. So that was pretty wild to me, because in the dream she also said, Mama, I said, did I take the mark? And she said, no, you didn't take the mark. You did the right thing. And I was just blown away. Fast forward a few years later. This was last year. I came across some people who were big into the truth movement, and they were talking about, I don't know if any of you have heard about the mind control program, MK Ultra. One of these people on this MK Ultra panels passively said something about that they were involved in the spread of the New Age movement, and they were CIA operatives. And I was like, what? I was like, New Age movement, like that's where we all need to go. That's where happiness is. That's what's going to make the world peaceful. They believe that we're all going to just rise up and love each other and only focus on the positive so much that everything's going to be great, and evil will fall away naturally. We're going to create the vibration so high, this Aquarian age. That was another thing Michael used to talk about, this Aquarian age. Like I wanted just everyone to just get along and love each other. And when I heard this woman that said she was an ex-CIA operative saying that she was sent out to spread the New Age movement, I was like, huh? So I got to digging. And I found that one of the original foundations of the New Age movement was called the Theosophical Society. The Theosophical Society eventually became what is now a much more watered down version of the New Age movement. And through a little more digging, I learned that one of the main people who started the Theosophical Society was Helena Blavatsky. Other people who were at the forefront of this movement included Alice Bailey, Aleister Crowley. She's openly quoted in her own literature as saying that and exalting and worshiping Lucifer. So that frightened me. You know, it's sort of like you think you have things figured out, and something just comes and just rips it right out from under you. The last thing I want as a human being is to believe a lie. I am very dedicated in trying to figure out the truth of this world. So I started looking more into it. I started looking more into, could this be true? I mean, New Age is bad? I mean, what do you mean? Sure enough, there are people who are doing astral projection and meditation, and they're getting demonically attacked all the time. And then what do you know? A few of them call out to Jesus just out of like reflex, and the things go away. And I was like, what? Jesus. Why? Why would that matter? And then also, I found a document, and it was incredible. I'm not going to say the name of it, but essentially this document was put out in 1895, and it systematically described everything that has to be accomplished for the New World Order to take control of the entire planet. It talks about owning the money reserve. It talks about Federal Reserve. It talks about taking control of the media and demoralizing people through the media. It talked about owning the educational system. It talked about controlling every single aspect of society. And the scary thing was, everything that they set out to do, they had already done. Another thing that it talked about doing was having these, they called agents, but they were essentially referring to the people that they would put in the public eye as being our politicians and the people that ruled our world. These would be the politician puppets that we all know the names and faces of today. Well, in this document, it explained that those were fall guys. Those people were under their thumb. And in the end days, they would pull the rug out from under them and start showing just how broken the system is. Part of the actual plan is to show you how broken the system is so that you will call out and say, oh, we don't want any more governments. We don't care about borders. We just want peace. We just want love. We just want peace. Help us. So when I started seeing all this stuff about Hillary and Bernie Sanders talking about corruption, I was like, wow, it said end days. And guess what was at the very top of that list? We must kill Christianity. It was the number one aspect of the world that had to die. And by that they meant people who believe in Jesus as their Savior and the Bible as the Word of God must be completely eradicated from the face of the earth. And just like hearing that people call on Jesus when they're being demonically attacked, I thought this had no power. This is a spiritual war. It actually does matter what side you're on. When I learned that the New Age movement had ties to Luciferianism, I gave up. I just gave up. Because I've always felt very led in my life, and I knew that something was protecting me, and that something I just went to and I just said, look, God, okay, I'll call you God. God, show me. Please show me what is true. I don't know. I give up. I have no clue. I don't want to be in the dark. This is all on you. You've protected me up to this point. I really need to know the truth. Please, please, please show me the truth and let me do your will. Let me do your will. Let me do your will. That became my prayer. I would have kept doing it on and on and on until I figured it out. Fortunately, he started showing me in really big ways. I started getting incredible dreams and visions. I was living in Los Angeles. Everything was seeming to come together for me. I wanted to create this healing center. I had investors like, hey, yeah, we can get you a great building. We're going to have your, law of attraction workshop here. We're going to have your yoga over there. We're going to have your juice bar and bone broth here. I mean, I was like, everything that I thought that I wanted was coming together. And suddenly, these dreams and visions were like, get out. Get out of LA right now. I smelled death. I started seeing people were not there. Like, I could see people, but their spirit was gone. I just got this very deep feeling of I need to get out of here. And at the same time, I felt this deep love. Okay, God, I can feel you. I know you're real. I know what you're saying. I'm going to do my best to get out of here. And those haunting sort of visions and dreams stopped. As soon as I promised to get out, they stopped. So if you look at my other videos, my tsunami dream, that was one of the dreams that I got that was coming to LA. I made plans to get out. I didn't know how, I didn't have enough money to do it, but I did. And I actually went to Mammoth Lakes, California, up on a mountain. Just like the prophets sent me up on a mountain. And I thought, something bad was going to happen and I needed to get away from it. But truly, he sent me there to get to know Jesus. And that's exactly what happened. And I know for those of you who don't believe in him still, this sounds crazy. It's more real than anything in this life. But you're not going to know that until you actually try to know yourself. The great thing about God is he's alive. This is not about a dead book. This is about a living God who loves you more than you can ever imagine. It's no coincidence that the 3 major religions of the world, Islam, the Jews, and Christianity. Okay, Islam, well, we know that they're not all pro-Jesus, are they? And the Jews, they don't believe in Jesus and their Messiah at all. And the entity that the mainstream media and the government recognizes as Christianity is what? Is the Vatican. It's the Pope. Did you know that in 2014 the Pope said that it's dangerous to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? Did you know that there's nothing in the Bible that says anything about praying to Mary? Did you know that the commandments also say that you're meant to rest on the 7th day? Well, why then are Christians that were commanded by the original Catholic Church doing that on a Sunday? I could go on and on about the reasons how Catholic religion is not true Christianity. The major religions of the world, they're all throwing Jesus under a bus. Let me tell you, friends, it's not by accident. The good news is, you don't have to believe me. The good news is, he is real, and he's alive, and he loves you a lot, and he wants to hear from you. So, if what I said today makes you wonder if what I'm saying is true, I implore you, I encourage you, I'll even beg you, call out to him. He will show up. Because he's that good. He's God. He can do that. The reason why I feel very led to do this right now is because in knowing him, he has showed me a lot of things that are happening very, very soon. And I know I sound like one of those crazy Jesus is coming and people holding the signs, and believe me, there's a reason the media has made those people look crazy, because they don't want you to be that person. They don't want you to want to be that person. Just forget about everything that you've been shown on TV. Forget about every movie that you've seen. Every stiff, judgmental hypocrite that has been shown to you as a Christian. They're not Christian, okay? I don't even like the name Christian. I call myself a disciple of Christ. If you have any curiosity about whether or not what I'm saying is true, you have to turn to him, and you need to fall on your knees and ask for the truth, just like I did. It can't be some, half-hearted, oh yeah, show me kind of prayer. I mean, it has to come from the heart. There's nothing more important right now, especially if you're in America. This eclipse, it is absolutely a warning from God. If you look up in the Bible, find yourself a Bible, in Revelation 17 and 18, the horror of the beast. The beast is a New World Order system. The whore is America. If we are not a whore of the earth, please, really, even the people who don't believe in any kind of religion, you got to admit, we have spread our filth all over the planet. Violence, just complete and total lack of anything holy. I want to read you this one thing. I actually only found this passage a few weeks ago, and it blew me away because it reiterated what I already knew was true. It says, "But mark this, there will be terrible times in the end days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud." I mean, we're encouraged to be boastful and proud. It's considered a good thing. People don't even realize we're meant to be humble. Abusive, disobedient to their parents. I mean, every Disney show out there is training children to be disobedient to their parents. Unholy, without love, unforgiving, without self-control. Not lovers of the good, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. I would go so far as to say that most people don't even know what God is. Those are the indications of the last days. This is not to spread fear, but it is to light a fire under you to figure out for yourself the truth in all this. Because I'll tell you right now, this country is about to fall. Trump was selected, not elected. He was selected for many purposes. One is so people will start hating Christians. Two is because they want a Christian, which he's not, a Christian nationalist in the White House when America is leveled. When America is leveled, the rest of the world will say, oh no, let's not do what they did. Friends, don't believe me. Go to him yourself. I'll end there, but I love you. Bye-bye.